Last night, probably one of the most important nights that we've seen in politics in many years. And that's because you had an attempted assassination attempt of a former president who is currently the nominated candidate for one of the two major political parties in the country. And that first 45 minutes was spent on addressing the American people, not really even the convention so much, but the American people about what happened on Saturday in Pennsylvania, honoring the firefighter who was killed. And he said, this is the only time you're going to hear it from me because it's too hard to tell. And then I think when he got into the second part of the speech, which was the more traditional political speech, you'll notice he even said, I'm not going to say Biden's name again, did what we kind of predicted on the show, which was already getting ready for an unknown potential candidate. Some people joking already that he already beat, what else does he have to do? 6 legal cases, 2 impeachments. He won an election. There was the contested election. And then he may have beat Joe Biden before even election day in this race. And he's up against an unknown, Democrat candidate at this point because of how well he did in that debate.
Axios called it was a convention speech in 2 acts. So almost like a 2-act play or something that, as you mentioned, it was a different tone than you've seen from President Trump. Even when he got into the more policy side of the speech, it was a lot different tone than you're used to hearing from him when he gives a speech. It wasn't that fiery fight that we have seen from President Trump. It was a humbled and more subdued tone than you've heard from him. And I think that that's going to be the big question of what goes forward, because he looked different, he sounded different, but by all accounts, it was a very powerful moment in the history of the Republican Party, as well as a very powerful moment in the history of this country.
Together we will launch a new era of safety, prosperity, and freedom for citizens of every race, religion, color, and creed. The discord and division in our society must be healed. We must heal it quickly. As Americans, we are bound together by a single fate and a shared destiny. We rise together or we fall apart. I am running to be president for all of America, not half of America, because there is no victory in winning for half of America.
This is the Donald Trump I remember from 8 years ago when he ran for president the first time. Though people thought he was being divisive, he was actually being unifying. And I don't know if it comes out into how the media spins it exactly, but I will tell you from being at the convention over 4 nights and being at 3 or 4 other conventions, working for conventions before in my career, this is the most diverse Republican Party I've ever walked through. And just walking through the convention, from people from different backgrounds, different economically, racial, people who have immigrated to the country and become citizens, and they support the message from Donald Trump. And then I really think we're also in this very bizarre moment where not only is he having to address an assassination attempt and talking about, I think if you remember, it's the Democrats and Biden who have been vindictive, who sent the DOJ after Donald Trump. Donald Trump did not send the DOJ after Hillary Clinton. Even after that long campaign of people chanting, lock her up, he realized as president at that time that would be a waste, that you need to unite the country to work on those big economic issues that matter most, and people being able to be successful, that's not what you do, is continue. Like he said, you don't win for half the country, even if you only get half the country's support. The issue here now, though, is, like he said, I'm not going to bring up Biden again. Has Donald Trump already beat Joe Biden? And who is going to be we're hearing about potentially 4 Democrats running for office and Joe Biden not endorsing Harris and him pushing back, the campaign pushing back today. It is a bizarre time in U.S. presidential politics when you're already through one of the major parties' conventions.
Last night, as the candidate for the Republicans, Donald Trump, was accepting his nomination, you were getting a deluge of reporting from Washington Post, New York Times, Axios, all of these big political reporters putting out stories about, well, it could be Sunday that Joe Biden decides I'm out. It could be him endorsing Kamala Harris. It could be him saying, let's do an open convention. I think AOC last night did a live on Instagram that was as long as Donald Trump's speech, trying to comfort her supporters, but also basically sounding like she's done with Joe Biden and all in on Kamala, but also trying to say she's not made that decision yet. It's a wild time. They are fractured.
Think about this 10-day stretch of Saturday in Pennsylvania by, like you said, Saturday or Sunday this weekend. We could have had one of the leading candidates shot, and the current president, who would be the nominee for his party, step down after being in a debate, potentially putting up one of the most unpopular vice presidents in our history someone who has just taken that ability to kind of build your profile, and it's been a disaster. But yet you've got Democrats. Do they rally around Harris? Do they try someone new? How do you move this money around legally? There's a lot of things they've got to figure out before they decide just to boot Joe Biden. And obviously his campaign is pushing back today.
I'm not supposed to be here tonight. Not supposed to be here. But I'm not. And I'll tell you, I stand before you in this arena only by the grace of Almighty God.
You saw the interaction from his grandkids at the convention, his sons and his family coming together and being there. I think, again, a strong symbol. And someone who is, again, went through an experience where they said, even though the crowd said no, of course, they believe, like most people believe, that he was saved, almost supernaturally. And as he acknowledged, that he really shouldn't be there based off the facts of where the shooter was, the kind of weapon they had, how close they were, how many shots they were able to get off. And of course, not forgetting that someone did lose their life. It wasn't like this shooter was missing people or missed Donald Trump. He shot him in the head. He just happened to turn his head in the right way at the right moment in the right second in history, or he wouldn't have been there this week, and we'd be a different country. I think the only reason that even like the MSNBC types could even be critical last night was because Donald Trump is back on stage as the nominee. And they were also covering for a mess which is happening inside their own party, which is whether or not Joe Biden is going to survive as the candidate for the Democrat Party. What happens to Harris? What is it, Michelle Obama? What happens to all of them and this money they've raised? It's a mess. And so I think, honestly, this convention, you will remember that moment, Will, because of what happened in Pennsylvania. But for the most part, you get through this week, it's not so defining to your campaign. J.D. Vance has a lot of work to do to still introduce himself to the country, and Donald Trump has a lot of work to do. But if you can get through this week without kind of a mess or without any missteps, that's smooth enough. And that happened. The convention was smooth. The speakers ran the gamut of diversity and difference, even of opinion, who come together under the Make America Great Again banner.